On day 100, something happened inside this tank that stopped me completely. A plant that started with just 6 traps had become something I never expected. This is the story of 100 days inside a carnivorous plant ecosystem. 3 plants, 1 tank, and nothing went according to plan. Most people think carnivorous plants are just decorations, something you put on a windowsill and forget about. But over 100 days, I discovered they are far more dangerous than they look. And by day 35, 2 of them did something that no carnivorous plant guide had ever warned me about. 100 days ago, I started with an empty 75-liter tank, 3 plants, and 1 question. What happens when predatory plants are forced to share the same space and compete for the same prey? For 100 straight days, the answer changed everything I thought I knew about how these plants actually work. The foundation had to be perfect. Sphagnum moss only, because regular potting soil contains nutrients that slowly poison carnivorous plant roots from the inside out. Most beginners never realize this until it's too late. Beneath the moss went a drainage layer, clay bowls, then a mesh separator. Because these plants hate waterlogged roots as much as they need. Constant moisture around them balances everything. 1 rule for this entire ecosystem: distilled water only. Tap water contains dissolved minerals that accumulate in soil over weeks and kill carnivorous plants silently. No exceptions. Not once, not ever. First plant in, a Venus Flytrap with 6 active traps. Second, a Sundew covered in glistening sticky droplets that catch insects like living flypaper. Third, a pitcher plant with 2 deep liquid-filled traps already waiting for its first unlucky visitor. 3 hunters, 3 completely different strategies. And I had absolutely no idea how they would react to sharing the same territory. But within the first hour, the ecosystem answered that question on its own. A fruit fly landed on the Venus Flytrap's trigger hairs. No help from me, no tweezers, no hand feeding. The trap fired, 0.3 seconds, done. What you just witnessed is a plant making a decision. Not a reflex, a decision. It counted the touches, confirmed movement, then committed. Because if it closes on debris or a raindrop, it wastes precious energy. This plant knew the difference. Have you ever seen a carnivorous plant catch something completely on its own? No assistance, no setup. Comment below, because what happened next makes everything else look ordinary. Within 3 hours, the Sundew had also caught 2 fruit flies on its own. They simply landed on the wrong surface and never left. No escape, no warning, just glue. The pitcher plant was still waiting. Patient, its liquid trap full, its slippery rim perfectly coated. It just needed 1 wrong step from 1 unlucky insect, and it was coming. Day 3. The pitcher plant got its first meal. A moth found its way in overnight, landed on the rim, slipped, gone. Before I even realized what had happened. That slippery rim isn't accidental. The pitcher plant produces a waxy coating, so frictionless that even insects with grip pad feet lose all traction the moment they land. Nature engineered a perfect trap millions of years before humans invented non-stick surfaces. Day 7. The Venus Flytrap had grown a brand new trap. Its second new trap in just 1 week of active hunting. In a standard setup with no consistent prey. That same growth takes 3 weeks. This ecosystem was already pushing it past its normal limits. And it was only day 7. What caused the faster growth? Competition for prey? Consistent nutrition? Or something else entirely? Tell me your answer in the comments. But here's what nobody tells you about carnivorous plant ecosystems. Growth isn't always the first sign something is working. Sometimes, the first sign is something going wrong. Day 21. A thick layer of white mold appeared overnight near the pitcher plant base. If left alone, it could spread across plant tissue and suffocate the entire ecosystem within days. I didn't intervene because I had added thousands of springtails from day 1 specifically for this moment. Within 24 hours, they handled it completely on their own. The ecosystem had self-corrected without any help from me. This was the first time it genuinely surprised me, and it wouldn't be the last. What would have happened if I hadn't added the springtails? Would the mold have taken over? Drop your answer in the comments below. Because what actually happened next surprised even me. Day 30. 1 month in. Every plant was larger than when it arrived. More than 60 insects caught, without a single hand feeding from me. The ecosystem was running itself. But day 35 brought the moment I mentioned at the very beginning. The thing no carnivorous plant guide had ever warned me about. And honestly, I still don't fully understand why it happened. The Venus Flytrap and the Sundew caught the same fruit fly at exactly the same moment. One trap closed on one wing. The Sundew's tentacles held the other side. 2 plants, 1 prey, simultaneously. I watched for 40 minutes. Neither plant released. Both began producing digestive enzymes on their own sections of the same prey. 2 plants sharing 1 meal. I had never seen anything like it. This has almost certainly never been documented in a controlled terrarium before. This is what happens when carnivorous plants compete for the same space. They don't back down. They adapt. Day 40. I added isopods to join the cleanup crew. A specialty variety, bright yellow with orange markings. They handle larger debris that the springtails can't break down efficiently. Together, they formed a complete decomposition system. Nothing died in this tank without being broken down and recycled back into the substrate. The ecosystem was feeding itself. No help from me, just nature doing what nature does. Day 45. The pitcher plant produced its largest trap yet, nearly 3 times the size of its original traps. And 2 days later, it caught something that changed the scale of this entire ecosystem. A large housefly fell directly into the new trap. Not a fruit fly, a fully grown housefly, 3 times the size of any prey this plant had caught before. The ecosystem had scaled itself up on its own. Larger traps attracting larger prey, more nutrition, growing even larger traps. A self-reinforcing cycle that no single plant in a standard pot could ever create. If you were building this ecosystem at home, which plant would you put in first? Venus Flytrap, Sundew, or pitcher plant? Drop your answer in the comments. I'll tell you which one I'd choose and why. Day 50. The Venus Flytrap produced its first flower stalk. The clearest possible signal that a plant has stored more than enough energy and is ready to invest in reproduction. But flowering comes with a cost. Flowering diverts energy directly away from trap production. I had a decision to make. Let it flower and watch hunting slow down, or trim the stalk and redirect every bit of that energy back to the traps. I chose to let it flower. For one reason, I wanted to see if the fruit flies in this ecosystem would accidentally cross-pollinate the flowers. What happened genuinely surprised me. The fruit flies were visiting the flowers. Not accidentally, deliberately. They were feeding on the pollen. The same species this plant had been hunting for 50 days was now helping it reproduce. Predator and pollinator. The same creature. If it touched the trap, it died. If it touched the flower, it helped the plant survive. The most complex biological relationship I had ever witnessed inside a tank this small. Day 60, 2 months in. Stand in front of this tank now, and you would not recognize it. From day 1, this had become something genuinely alive, something with rules. I hadn't written. The moss had covered 80% of the substrate, and the 3 plants had developed something I had never read about in any terrarium guide. Distinct hunting territories in the same enclosed space, without any help from me. The Venus Flytrap's traps covered the low ground level. The Sundew's sticky leaves extended outward at mid-height. The pitcher plant's opening sat at the highest point of all. Each species had claimed a different layer of the air column on its own. This is exactly what happens in real bog ecosystems. Different carnivorous species reduce direct competition by hunting at different heights. My tank had replicated wild behavior completely by accident. Nature always finds a way. But day 70 brought the second major crisis. 3 of the Venus Flytrap's oldest traps turned black simultaneously. Not from overfeeding this time, from something I hadn't seen coming at all. The moss had grown too close to the base of the plant. It was trapping excess moisture directly against the crown, the most sensitive part of the entire plant. The ecosystem itself was threatening one of its own hunters. This time I had to intervene, carefully trimming the moss back from the crown area within 72 hours. The stress marker stopped spreading. 3 days later, a new trap bud appeared, exactly where the dead ones had fallen off. This was the lesson that changed how I think about ecosystem keeping permanently. Self-sustaining doesn't mean hands-off forever. It means knowing exactly when the system needs help and when to step back and trust it completely. Day 80. Something crawled into the Sundew. That stopped me completely. A fully grown cricket. 3 times the size of the largest prey this plant had ever attempted. I expected it to pull free immediately. Sundews are associated with catching small prey, but every movement triggered more tentacles. More tentacles meant more glue, and the cricket was not pulling free. 2 hours later, the cricket had stopped moving entirely. The Sundew had caught prey, almost twice its own size. This is called thigmotropism. The Sundew's tentacles physically respond to touch by curling inward, wrapping tighter. With every single movement the prey makes, the more the cricket struggled, the more trapped it became. Fighting only made things worse. Day 83. The Venus Flytrap now had 15 active traps, up from 6 on day 1. But the number wasn't what surprised me. The speed was. On day 1, the average trap closure time was 0.31 seconds. By day 83, it had dropped to 0.19 seconds. This plant had gotten measurably faster. A well-fed predator becomes a better predator. Does that surprise you? That a plant can actually improve its hunting speed through consistent feeding? Comment below. Because most people assume plants are static, fixed things. This ecosystem proved otherwise. Day 85. I looked down into the pitcher plant's largest trap and noticed something moving inside the digestive liquid. Not prey being digested. Something alive. Swimming. These are called inquilines. Organisms that have evolved specifically to survive inside pitcher plant traps. They feed on the prey the plant catches without being digested themselves. They don't help the plant. They don't harm it. They simply evolved to exploit one of nature's most dangerous environments as a safe home. A plant trap had become its own micro-ecosystem. A living world inside a living world inside my terrarium. I had not planned this. Nature had added it entirely on its own. Day 90. I measured every plant against my day 1 baseline measurements. Venus Flytrap, 47% larger in total leaf spread. Sundew, nearly 3 times its original diameter. Pitcher plant, largest trap now 4 times the volume of its original traps. These numbers matter because in standard single plant setups, this level of growth typically takes 12 to 18 months. This ecosystem produced it. In 90 days, the competition for prey had pushed every plant beyond its normal limits. Which of these 3 results surprised you most? The Venus Flytrap getting faster? The Sundew tripling in size? Or the pitcher plant developing its own internal ecosystem? Tell me in the comments. Day 100, the final test. I introduced the largest prey item this ecosystem had ever seen. A fully grown adult cricket, placed directly in the center of the tank, where all 3 plants could respond. The cricket moved toward the Sundew first. 2 tentacles made contact. It pulled free, but left behind a small piece of antenna, stuck in the glue. The Sundew had drawn first contact. The cricket turned toward the Venus Flytrap, walked directly across the open trap surface, touched the first trigger hair, paused, then touched the second one. 0.19 seconds. The trap closed. The fastest closure this plant had recorded across the entire 100 days. The cricket was completely sealed inside before it even registered what had happened. The 100-day ecosystem had just produced its single most efficient hunt. A plant that arrived with 6 slow traps had become a precision predator with 15 faster traps and a completely different level of capability. Now for the final results. Venus Flytrap started with 6 traps, ended with 15. A 150% increase in active trap count. Closure speed improved 39% across 100 days. Sundew tripled in total diameter, developed the ability to consistently catch prey, significantly larger than its typical range, a capability it would not have developed without consistent larger prey available in this ecosystem. Pitcher plant, trap volume increased 4 times from its original size, produced a confirmed internal micro-ecosystem, and caught the widest variety of prey types of any plant in this tank. Total insects caught across all 3 plants combined over 100 days More than 800 individual prey items, all captured through natural hunting. 0 hand feeding required after day 14. If you want to try building your own carnivorous plant ecosystem, here are the 4 things that mattered most across these 100 days. And the one mistake that almost cost me everything. On day 70. Lesson 1. Substrate is everything. Sphagnum moss. Proper drainage layer. Distilled water only. Get this wrong, and nothing else matters. Lesson 2. Add a cleanup crew from day 1. Springtails and isopods are not optional extras. They are essential infrastructure. Without them, mold wins within weeks. Lesson 3. Use multiple carnivorous plant species with different hunting mechanisms. The layered territory behavior that developed naturally created a more efficient ecosystem than any single species could ever achieve alone. Lesson 4, and this is the one most people get wrong. Watch the moss. It will grow toward your plants. And if it reaches the crown, before you notice, you will lose traps to stress damage faster than the plant can replace them. That was the critical mistake. On day 70, moss reached the Venus Flytrap crown before I caught it. 3 traps lost. Lesson learned the hard way. And now you won't have to. Learn it the same way I did. 100 days, 3 species, 1 ecosystem, and a result that permanently changed how I keep carnivorous plants. This tank isn't stopping. At day 100, day 200 is already in progress. If you want to follow what happens next, subscribe to Wild Hatch, because the next update is going to show you something I genuinely don't think has ever been documented in a carnivorous plant terrarium before. One last question. Did anything that happened in this tank genuinely surprise you? Because the shared capture on day 35 still gets me every time I watch it back. If this video changed how you think about carnivorous plants, hit subscribe and leave a comment telling me which moment across these 100 days you'll remember longest. See you in the next one.